Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I want to talk about the amazing Kreskin. Kreskin's been around for years, and he has started, we need to understand that he calls himself a mentalist and an entertainer. He kind of pretends he has super abilities like they all do, but he's not a big into it like so many other ones. We have to be very careful of these people, but he also, the one big problem I find with Kreskin is the fact that he's a typical debunker, dumb bunker, idiot skeptic type. So, even with all the research and he claims to read 3 books a day, I don't know. You got to remember, he's a showman. He seems intelligent to me. But the bottom line is that you can't be intelligent if you don't read the literature of 150 years on the validity of I don't know what to call it. I like to call it the biophysical, the psychic sciences. But psychic, the word has been basically pooed upon by the Christians in particular that think psychic is some sort of demonic occult thing. But I'm not sure we can have anything to be bothered with that. I mean, we can't be following what we're doing based on what the psychotics in the out there do, or the dumbademia experts who don't know the literature either. It's shocking that people who claim to be a physicist have read none of the literature in an area that they should be studying, because their science hasn't went anywhere in over 100 years. Yet the psychic sciences, the manifesting sciences, as I like to call them, but really it's the subtle energy physics, is really what we're talking about, because all life is energy, and it's energy physics, which doesn't exist in the physics world because they're meat puppets. You're just a meat puppet. So the high ideas, everything is based in coming from material matter and then going from there. But while real science is completely backwards, they don't know what they're talking about with this materialistic viewpoint. Everything comes from energy that forms physical matter. Now that's the ultimate quote. It's not a debate. They can't do anything. They're wrong. The manifesting scientists are producing results every day. We're making things happen. They're contemplating in their theoretical world of mishmash and crack realities. It's really that kind of idiot thinking. So we shouldn't really do that. So, I like the fact that Kreskin, his real name is George Joseph Kresge. And he changed it, obviously. He was born in Montclair, New Jersey, to Polish and Italian parents. I'm assuming Kresge is a Polish name. And you can't get to the most Christian country on the planet is Poland, who are radical right-wing nutjob, born-again type Christians. So the whole idea is that one of the problems is that he's very negative to any alternative people. He clearly states there's no such thing. He thinks there's no such thing as hypnotism, even though he hypnotizes people all the time. And again, this is a semantic thing. I'm not sure what he means. But in terms of that, there's amazing things that people do when they're hypnotized. It's a mind-boggling yet simple process. If you find somebody who you can put into, which most occultists can, you can put them into hypnotic states very easily because they're constantly going in and out of these states to do the work that we all do. So, he believes typically scientific stuff. He does not believe in the power of anything psychic or there's real energies there. He considers it, and this has been a thought process, particularly that came out in the 60s for those dumb bunker types, is that it is, and even stated in the 30s, as I mentioned in my review of the very rare training tool, that was produced during the Zenith radio times where they were doing psychic experiments. where this is just really a process of observation. And that's, of course, what he uses mostly. Now, he has told people like Russell Targ that he occasionally gets and sees a vision of what he's seeking. And that just happens to everybody who does this, that it just pops in their mind, as I've been telling people how the process works. It just pops there. You're not thinking it into reality. Of course, that makes it not work. But he's an observational person. He does this even in his actual shows where, I don't know if he does it with all shows, but most shows he will not get paid if he cannot find his paycheck, which is hidden in the audience somewhere. And how does he do this? Well, it's not done by psychic means. It's done by acute observation. And he's a big proponent of this. Now, what I've liked about him, his books, he has several books. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'll do individual reviews on these. I haven't read his books in so long, I don't remember what was in them, but he's written several books that are in a practical nature. He's put out some DVDs. I had one of his, but, they're magician tricks DVDs, of how you lift tables and other things, and it's all done by little tricks that you do, and he is a trickster. He's an illusionist. An illusionist, or a theatrical magician, there are types of these. People think of Houdini. Well, Houdini was an escape artist that he was known for. He was a mediocre magician doing hand tricks in front of you. So he couldn't really do those that well. He got his fame from escape artist stuff. And so there are different levels of it. Then there's theatrical magic in general, which can be a whole bunch of things. As I've just mentioned, you see these on TV all the time, and they're basically using some sort of gimmick, some sort of contraption that does something that looks real but isn't. Because if you look at it from the back or the side, etc., sawing people in half, fake levitation, this is all part of the illusionist tricks. And of course, there's endless amounts of card tricks and other things. And these are all pretty much known. You can go to any magic shop and you can buy similar versions of what you see on TV. The TV things tend to be made a little more glorious, and they'll make it more fancy, put their own spin on it. And of course, that's what gains you fame as a magician, by taking kind of what's already out there and putting your spin on it, changing it a little. And all this stuff, I think most occultists find interesting. Magicians and so forth. Penn and Teller, the biggest dumb bunkers out there, of course, have a show that says Fool Me, I think it is. And they bring magicians in and they do tricks to see if they're doing something that they don't know about. And you can see this and you can see it. But they're all tricks. There is no, quote, high-level empowerment going on. They are not psychics. They're not remote viewers. They're not any of that. And the fact that they imitate it means absolutely nothing. It's showbiz. It's entertainment. And it's very difficult to have entertainment, even if you could bend spoons and forks at will. Can you imagine doing that for an hour and charging somebody $150 for that? So, even if you can do stuff like that, and there are people that can, it's not very interesting. So you have to add things in. And of course, it's difficult to put on a big show, dance around, make jokes, and then do all sorts of psychic stunts. You're losing your concentration. You're moving from your altered state into jokey state. So it's not going to work. So the point is that if you do have these abilities and want to make a real show and make money, you have to combine it. Now, David Hoy was the first real psychic to do this. And he would combine psychic feats with theatrical magic. Uri Geller started to do this and probably still does, so he can make an interesting show. So it's a combination, you never know. And, if you don't feel good, you're not on that night, I'm giving back your $150, right? Well, psychics and can be put upon people, but certainly not the richest entertainers in the world, who are people like David Copperfield, who are worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, who own their own islands, who more people have seen in person than anybody else. It's okay for them to do nothing but illusions, trick people under the guise of they have super abilities, and make lots of money. But if it's a psychic who has to make it more entertaining, you have a problem. And I always recommend to all my people that you learn magic tricks and you should carry one with you. Something that appears psychic, but you can use the gimmick. That's the way the world is. Plain and simple. The point is that you are a real empowered person. But it doesn't mean you want to do it on the bus or at your office desk or somewhere else where they put you on the spot when you're tired or having a drink after work. You want to make sure you impress people. Plain and simple. So that's the way it goes, and all of this needs to be fully understood of how these things work. So, a lot of these magicians, and I'm going to do a whole series on magicians here, and this is the magician series with, of course, amazing Kreskin. And so getting back to him here as a general understanding, he is this very conservative, probably very religious person. So, I haven't heard him directly state that, but he has stated, and there's some very interesting products and other things out there that he has produced over the years. He's been very prolific in producing products. And of course he should. And what I've liked about him is that he has been pretty much doing this with ESP-based products. And he was one of the first ones, not the first one. We have the first one, which is Mind Over Matter, which was produced, I believe, in 1964, which started to use psychic powers to train you. A fantastic tool that we do have for sale. And people should grab that. It's a very, very rare tool, and it teaches you almost in a Ouija board type fashion how to read the actual cards that come with it. So, and there's a video on that, so make sure you check that out as well, and hopefully it'll be underneath this. So you should look at that. It's a great training tool, and you need training tools, as I said 100 times. You're not use training tools, you're never going to build your psychic ability. You cannot just work with techniques and out of a book. So, you can read all the books you want on building muscle. If you don't go to the gym and pump iron all the time, you're never going to have a decent body. Now, I don't know why this is a mystery to so many people in this field, but you've been bamboozled by boobs who tell you that you can learn something out of a book or meditate with your chakras and wear a diaper and you will be wonderful. And a turban, goo. Well, the point is that while these traditions from these countries, which a lot of them are based in fraud, are not the way things go. They didn't have 2 pennies to buy. You have tools, you use them, you grow in power quick, fast, and empower yourself. Use it in your life and change your life. It's just as simple as that. If you're looking for some pseudo-spiritual way going through these ancient forms from countries that are really just the bottom of the barrel realities, well, you're going to come up short. We have a complete system. Follow it. You do that for 6 months to a year, get the tools you need, and you will be mind-blowingly powerful. So, we need to understand that. So, you combine all that. Now, Kreskin, of course, as I said, he's come from that background. He's been around for years. He's 86 years old now. So, the bottom line is that he probably won't be here much longer either. Uri Geller's in his 70s now. So all of these things is important. Now, he did go to, if that means anything, but it does tell you where he's coming from. He graduated from Seton Hall University. Seton Hall University is a private Catholic university in South Orange, New Jersey, founded in 1856 by Bishop James Roosevelt Bailey. So, he went to a Roman Catholic university, and of course, you're taught there you're taught regular things, but of course under the guise of that. So this guy is a very radical Christian. We have to understand that. He doesn't say that directly, or at least I've never heard him. I've watched his TV show from the 70s and the new format it is. You can buy these online inexpensively, and we'll probably have a link to that. It is fun to see the shows. You see a lot of people who are really classics from the industry in the 70s, known authors in different areas. You get to see him in person with a little interview, and most of the interviews are good, but he calls people people like witches and psychics weird people. It's a big insult, yet he's making money off of them. He also clearly stated on that show that he has no will or intention to ever promote any kind of occultism. So, whatever that means again. I'm not sure if he had a Satanist on a show or not. He may have. That's when they were popular. So he doesn't have a problem putting people on to get ratings, as well as witches. But it is good to see some of these classic old people, and the interviews are fairly okay. But he does his usual and card tricks and everything. You know, card tricks are the most boringest thing you can do and not very interesting. So, and then, of course, it's still done in the mystical way. He said he was inspired to become a mentalist by Lee Falk's comic strip Mandrake the Magician, which featured a crime-fighting stage magician. And he's always presented himself as an entertainer, never as a psychic who operates on basics of suggestion, not the paranormal or supernatural. So he generally states this, even though I'm not sure he's pushed that. He likes to have the illusion that he has some sort of super psychic ability. So I don't fully agree with that, even though other ones do come out. People like Blaine and others come out that they're some sort of mystical person. Some have come out and said that they do have great abilities, who are doing just tricks. And there's others, of course, that have come out and try and dance around that. So, you have to be careful of all these. They all have the same thing. They want to have the mystic illusion around them, but they ultimately cop out into their society of liars and cheats, otherwise known as the tricksters of theatrical magicians, who want to put everybody down and think they know everything when they haven't read any of the literature. So as one famous theatrical magician told me, the bottom line is, who wants to come out and go to a fake psychic? So if you put a sign out there, fake psychic, well, who's going to show up for your show? So you want to put yourself as the amazing psychic, but then want to wink your eye and say, well, I'm not really psychic, wink, wink. Well, what does that mean? You're kind of, you're not. So that's the reality that we all run into, and that's how these end. That's the problem I have with these people. Some people have come out and said it's just all tricks. These are few of it. Penn and Teller kind of does that. You know, they don't say they're doing anything through supernatural means, but they're doing things that are unexplainable, and they're not giving their secrets away. So they're playing. So I'm not sure how you're supposed to look at that. We're special. We're doing things. It's a trick. Well, do you really believe that? People are thinking they're doing something supernatural, even if they deny it. It's kind of a sneaky way of doing things. I don't really like that. And they're very pseudo-intellectual, arrogant people that have never really read anything. They haven't gone through the 150 years worth of research. They're promotion whores who are constantly going out there trying to get attention by being atheists and everything else. So as we get involved in all that stuff, we need to fully understand that. So this is the little game that's played. It needs to be spoken here, particularly in my first in this series, and I'll try not to repeat this in other things, of the little game that these are. Chris Angel is famous for giving the illusion that he's his little goth act and everything else, and he's had a show for years. They're all kind of entertaining, but it gets kind of insulting after a while. These are just illusions. And, I can make something disappear right in front of you instantly. I can take a little ball, a little piece of paper, and put it about 6 inches, foot in front of you, and I can make it disappear. And you know how I do that? I keep throwing it up and down, and then the last time I throw it over your head. Boom, it's gone. Yeah, it just went over your head because your eye can't see that. That's how. And who is the stooge there? You're the stooge. So this is where it gets to be insulting, and then people pay literally hundreds of dollars for these shows. Now, I've seen several magic shows, and they're all interesting. And, once you've seen them, you've seen them. It's a trick. You're an idiot. They're doing things to fool you. If you go from the side, you go in the back, you'll find out what they're doing. And this has been done in India in particular, where people think all these rope climbing and all these other feats are something that is special and magically based. They're not. They're tricks. And some of them are super ingenious and passed down for hundreds of years that nobody really knows how they're done. So, it is fascinating. but it is illusion. There may be some people that are doing this from a power structure. But you're going to remember it's very rare. 99% is going to be all some sort of illusion. And a lot of these things that you think are amazing, you can buy in any magic shop for under $10, as well as all these card tricks. They're gimmicks. They're little things. They're illusions. And when they're done in front of you quickly, you don't see it. So remember that. So these mentalist tricks. Now, mentalism in the area of theatrical magic means fake psychic stuff. Because all mentalism deals with something psychic based. And a lot of mentalist tricks even use what are considered the Zener ESP cards. And they'll say, well, think of one of these. And then they will come up with what you think of or pick something. And I'll tell you which one this is. There's all sorts of variations. And when you understand how the process goes, it's kind of amusing. I like to watch these shows because I know what they do now. And I like to see how they're doing it. While you just sit there and go, man, that's amazing. I can't believe it. You are like God. So all the things that are going on there are quite interesting. So, and as I've mentioned, learn how to do that so you can't be tricked, number one, and use it yourself. So that's what a mentalist is, and that's what you call them. There's a whole area of magic, theatrical magic, that is called mentalism, and there are just books on this, ways of doing fake psychic readings and other things, and these things work amazingly well to a degree, but there's also a lot of social pressure when you're in a place that you're going to. You're in a good mood, you probably had a few drinks or a good meal, and you're not going to fight. I just paid $150 to get in here, so I'm gonna fight with this guy and tell him that he's wrong. No, you're gonna say, gee, what amazing. I had a good time. Yeah. Oh, you've been faked. I'm a stooge, and I'm happy because I paid $100. It's like people buy a lot of these crap luxury cars and fancy sports cars, which are just garbage. Uncomfortable, noisy. Oh, yeah, I paid $150,000 for it. Yeah, the best car I ever had. Just can't walk because the seats are so hard, and I can't really hear what you're saying because the motor's too loud. These are the kind of things you get. Oh, we love them. I love it. It's the best thing I've ever bought. Yeah. This is the kind of stuff you run into. So there's all sorts of pressures and non-pressures involved in it. So the whole idea is that he does have a problem, though, Kreskin, with moving into the realms to make money and to gain attention. Because how much of this mentalism fraud is he going to actually get into? So, how deep can he keep getting away playing it kind of clean? Well, he's not. You can't do it. It's boring. It's just like bending spoons for an hour or doing some basic little telepathic thing, spinning a wheel, etc. Well, this is boring and unimpressive to large crowds. So he likes to do, and of course he claims he doesn't do this through paranormal clairvoyant abilities, but he makes all sorts of predictions, and they're usually all wrong. And he doesn't want to use the term psychic. So the whole idea is that he's been making predictions, everything. He got into trouble a few years ago on the Art Bell show, predicting and saying that if it didn't work out, so there was some sort of that UFOs would be spotted in this area, and that if they didn't, he would give $50,000 to charity. Now, they caught him on that, and they caught him in a lie. It didn't happen. And then he said, well, I only did that for the psychic effect. Because he figured, based in psychology, that if he says this, somebody in the crowd is going to call the police because they saw an airplane light and say that they saw UFOs. Now, this is more probable than not. But old Kreskin, and like most of these theatrical people, get caught. And if you're out there watching and monitoring, you'll find out they get caught in all sorts of things. They keep saying it's so easy to do this, and they can trick everybody. Well, the point is that generally this isn't true in the long run. In the short run, of course, if somebody did call in, he would have screamed, yes, see that? And he got back into the fact that this was just an illusion with his actual way of working. This is just a psychological thing. And that's exactly what expected. Somebody's going to call in because he suggested it to them and say they saw something. And this probably will work, 95% of the time, but it didn't work this time. And of course, he didn't pay the $50,000 he promised if it failed. That was the icing on the cake, that he wanted to make it more dramatic, people to pay attention to what he's doing, and that in fact also motivates somebody to call in and state the fact that they saw something. There has to be some reward there, even if it's not going to you. There has to be something on the line to motivate people. So he did that, and this was a broadcast on the Art Bell Show, and Art Bell banned him because of his theatrical nonsense. Now, he was on The Tonight Show for 61 times from 1970 to 1980s. In the 80s and 90s, he came to prominence again through David Letterman's show and Howard Stern. In 1990, he was the first guest to make 3 appearances on the Jimmy Fallon show. So he's on the shows, he gets on the shows. People always love these little stunts. So he's been able to continue his act, and I'm assuming he's still doing it. He's 86 now, and he's doing things online and other things. He did have that TV show I mentioned from 1970 to 1975. Now, this was a Canadian show that was syndicated in the United States. I don't remember that show in first run. As I said, I'm watching the actual DVDs he put out. And apparently, he also did a show, additional episodes from 75 to 77 out of Canada again. So he's got some supporters in Canada that take his stuff. He never really made it to the American networks. He was syndicated in the United States, which was big until recently. Now everything, of course, is on actual cable and Netflix, all the things we do now. So, and he had these different, as I said, he was very rude to a lot of people on his show because of his religious backgrounds. So he's also known, as I said, he's been, but what was big back then, I think I jumped away from this, there's so much to cover here, is that even back in the 1930s, there were some psychologists and others that were saying that all psychic power is, if you want to figure out the card someone is projecting. Let's say you're doing an ESP experiment. That if you were to watch, there is a tell for every shape. So, if you're projecting a star, you will make some sort of movement that means star. And that's different from a circle, that's different from a square, etc. So this is called keen observational. And this is a way of doing fake psychic stuff, because it is true. Tells are out there, but it's very difficult, especially if you're having random stuff. Now, tells are talked about particularly in poker. Now, they don't know what cards you have. They try and, from tells, find out how excited you are. So depending on the hand you have, your pupils are going to expand. Oh, got 4 aces. Whoa! See, this is what's going on inside of you. Now, on the outside, you're not doing that, but maybe you're flicking an ear, maybe you're twinkling an eye. Your pupils expand because this is like gold. So this is what poker players are looking for. They want to tell in a ballpark. Okay, we know you have a hand. Now we want to know, well, how big is that hand? Now, theoretically, if they watch these people endlessly and could go through an entire card deck, they could find your tells for every card. I find this to be very, very theoretically interesting, but practically nonsense. It'd be very hard to get an entire card deck and do that. But you may be able to get a level of excitement pinned down by this person. Meaning, does he have 4 of a kind in general? Because he's going to do this. Does he have 2 of a kind? He's going to do this. So these kind of tells are something that has been done, and poker players, professional ones, study this. This is also part of the psychology involved in police and other agencies that are trying to figure out whether you're lying or not. And they claim they can do it by your tells. I'm not sure how true that is or not. It's like lie detectors. Lie detectors don't tell if you're lying. They tell how nervous you are. So the assumption is that if someone asks you, did you murder Bill Smith with this pipe? And the needle goes up and you're very freaked out about it. Oh, you did it. Well, maybe you're just freaked out if somebody's murdered by a pipe. Not to mention you're in a very stressed condition. So the whole idea is that people are, they're measuring your level of nervousness, assuming that high levels mean that you are hiding something. So, but there's no such thing as a lie detector, at least not those machines. They're probably, they have figured this out in brain research now, and they can tell whether you're lying through certain brain functionings. Which of course makes sense. Your brain is making a lie and it's going to do that. Now, whether you have outward signs of it is another thing. You can cover it up. There are ways to beat lie detectors so you're not nervous. All you have to do is have good centering. But your brain's probably going to not be able to be controlled in that way, or at least it would take a super level of work. So the whole idea is that's what he is doing a lot. He's doing a lot of these observational things to see what happens. And he bases his money on this. He thinks he's so good at this, and apparently is, that this is how he hides the check. So when he goes to and does big things, he goes and has the check hid, and then he walks around the audience trying to find people who are susceptible, who can make these tells, and then he looks at him and say, well, where's my check? Is it in the back? And then he'll watch the eyes move. Does that person kind of move to the eye movement that means yes or no? And then he'll go in the back and do the same thing with someone else, and then you can define this down to actually find your check. And it looks amazing, but it's nothing more than extreme observation, which he's practiced. And let's get it clear here. These magicians, all of them, are very well skilled. They take enormous times to practice and refine these tricks. And they are tricks, but it's a lot of hard work, and it's even more hard work to pull it off to make it interesting. A lot of tricks are very simple, but it's the jokes they do. It's the dancing around they do. You ever wonder why magicians have beautiful women who are scantily clad? Well, they don't want you looking at them too close. Look at her boobs are hanging out. Woo! So the whole idea, and of course, when you're laughing, you're not concentrating either. So these are all the kind of redirectional things they do. So this is how all of this works, but it's observational in terms of a lot of these things. So it has thought, and this was said by this famous psychologist who was working with or arguing with J.B. Ryan, the famous investigator, that's all that all this stuff was. And anybody, and I don't know why you would go to an ESP test and do that. So, unless you're paid like the unamazing Randy did to pay people to go in and trick scientists, and I'm not sure that was really tricked or not. They think it's tricked, but it's not. So, and there's all sorts of interesting stories that he tells or used to tell. He has passed now. That we don't know if they're true or not because he's been caught in a lot of falsehoods. So, and setting up things and constantly making sure that because it's all part of the brainwashing process. You lie about something enough and it turns into everybody believes it, just like they believe there's no research that's been done in psychic powers to prove anything. This is a common thought, yet there's 150 years of research. But the parapsychologists have failed to do anything because they're weasels. So the whole idea is that this is a real problem out there. So he does this, and he does it to the fact of betting his salary on it. Now, I don't know if this is a personal challenge to him to up his game, but it is a risk, and it is something that is interesting that he wants to tell people that's how good he is. And it is not done in any psychic means. He states that. But we're not even sure if that's true. How many magicians are using psychic powers and are psychics, but you can't make money that way? He's one of them fake psychics. We're going to go to him. I want to go to the amazing Kreskin. He's real. So why would you bill yourself as a psychic when you can bill yourself as a super being? So we don't know how many people in all of this. There's been a few magicians that were using psychic power, claimed to, or were interested in it. I believe Doug Henning, who was famous in the 70s and 80s and who died unexpectedly at a young age, was investigating this and trying to use that. And of course, that was the golden age again, the 70s and 80s, of these people involved in psychic powers that people scoff at. But people scoff at everything, and that's nothing new. So we don't know how many people are doing. We don't know how much Kreskin is getting psychically. But of course, he doesn't want to rely on it, and he's got greater powers that tell him there is nothing there. Why would God create a person and not give them psychic powers so they could survive better? Does that even make sense? And why would that come from something else? So people always want to focus on the evil within them, and which amazes me when they supposedly are supposed to be believing in other things. So it's just the same old problem with the ignorancy of that religion, and particularly Christianity, tends to push on people. So the whole idea is that he finds his check there. And of course, these are not $10 checks. These are thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, apparently, he has failed in his entire career, which is a long one. Anywhere, I've seen different figures, anywhere from 12 to approximately 25, 30 times. But you're talking about in an entire lifetime. He's 86 right now. But he has failed, and he's lost that money. I don't think he's picked it up. I don't know if there's any backdoor, oh, yeah, wink, 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 we know you failed, here's your check. I don't know if that's happened or not, but he claims on a TV show I watched with him on that he's failed, and it added up to like 60 grand that he lost. So it's not something that is pittance if it's all real. There was a movie kind of based on his life called The Great Buck Howard, which is an interesting movie. I recommend people seeing it. Written by Sean McGintley, who worked briefly as Kreskin's road manager. So I think he wrote this thing based on him and was able to get it produced. He's still making predictions. You can see he lives back east in New Jersey, so you see him a lot on CNN and Fox or New York City shows. So you can actually so he's based back there and does most of his stuff. After all, he's 86. He still travels the world and does a whole bunch of other things. Now, to get into what he's done, which is more positive, now in the 1966, I believe, he came out with the ESP game. Now, I don't know if he did that. This was by Milton Bradley. The same exact game in every way was marketed in Europe, the UK, and Australia as Kreskin or something like this, a magician of note, a mentalist from that country. All they did was change the picture on the front and the name, because that person was known there as a mentalist. So does that mean this was a game put together and, of course, by Milton Bradley, and they just put his name on it so it would sell more because he was the popular psychic mentalist as of that time, Kreskin? It's not really known. Certainly that was followed up by an advanced version. It must have sold the basic versions. They came out with an advanced version, and all of these particular tools, which are great tools, and I don't know if Kreskin had anything to do with it. They certainly are designed professionally. These are not things that are just goofy thrown out there. And I believe the instructions for these state that there is a psychologist who has reviewed this and went over the procedures in his games and made and shown them to be valid. And they certainly are. They all also deal with the use of pendulums, because this, of course, is movement and an extra tool. Psychic stuff, again, as I always say, is very boring. You want to see physical things happen. So how do you do that? Well, of course, you add pendulums in. There seems to be a lot of pendulum work coming out from Kreskin. I'm not sure if that is, again, something that he wants to do or something that involves it. But it, again, gives you that all-essential movement. So he has the basic ESP edition, then the advanced ESP edition, which is they're both really nice. I like the advanced edition. It's a really cool pendulum board they give you for yes and no's, and it's an excellent training tool as well as using psychic. He also came out with a Celtic Oracle game that teaches you pendulum work again. Really cool stuff. Now, again, is this something, that's when there was kind of a Celtic movement. It came from, I think, Fun X is the company who made this. So I don't know if they just invented it themselves, because this happens all the time. They go and say, look, we want to use your name. And by the way, Kreskin has done this, and I'll get to that in a minute. They say, look, we got this cool game, but who's going to get it? Who's going to buy it? We want to put your name on it and your picture on it. And they pay you a fee to do that. To use his image, and they get his permission. Now, he has sold his image to other companies. One of them was selling junk that they would sell through a mail order ad, and they wouldn't send the product out. And eventually, they got closed down or went into problems and had complaints, all sorts of complaints against them. And it had nothing to do with him. The problem is that your name's on it. So you're blamed as the con artist when you just sold your name. So he's known to do this to the point that people have used his name and made money off of him and defrauded people. Now, it has nothing to do with him, and I'm not sure the entire story there, but it is a fact. So he's known to do that, and he's known to do that on several occasions. So the point is, did he design any of these things? I frankly doubt it. Now, there are other things, and of course I can't get any information on it. If anybody has any of these old stuff that can supply it to me, let me know. He did have an ESP organization and a newsletter that he would send out. And again, I don't know. I've seen reference to it, but I have never seen any physical stuff from it. It's sad that these things come and go. Even apparently Russell Targ from SRI had some sort of little club and information newsletter going. This is what people used to do to make extra money. You put out a newsletter. It doesn't take much time. Of course, there's the process of mailing and everything else, but you probably pay somebody else to do that, and you just collected the money. Usually it's very simple and easy. You're just selling anywhere from 5 to 20 pages of written information in a newsletter. So the whole idea is that this is common. So how much of this stuff he was involved in and what he's done, I don't know. He certainly doesn't talk ESP much anymore. He does his little things. He's calling it mind power, mentalism, etc. And, mentalism, as I said, is just mental tricks. Nothing real is going on. He's not reading any minds. He's not doing anything else. He's also been caught with his prophecies, which are never right. I got several of these from the past. And it's always fun to read stuff that was supposed to happen in 1989 and see how all that is just nonsense. But people have very short memories. It's just like getting the National Enquirer January 1st and then looking at it again at the end of the year. Well, what came true? And boy, when you read these things, nothing comes true. So he's known for that. This is all part of showmanship, all part of mentalism, and what is done. But it's interesting. So he's very, very willing to sell his name. How much development is going on? I don't see it. He certainly doesn't talk about that. He doesn't have any newsletters now. He doesn't have any ESP organizations. But what I liked about him is that he was involved in ESP. He wasn't just doing mentalism. Now, ESP is the legitimate research into psychic abilities. Extrasensory perception, which covers many areas. So again, I don't know what his newsletters were, but he was involved in that. He also came out at the same time with a thing called Kreskin Kreskin's crystal, which is another pendulum tool for the stock market. And basically, it's a very attractive lucite square block, I should say, approximately 4.5 by 2 inches thick. On one side, it said yes, no. On the other side, it said buy, sell. And it gave you a little pendulum that sits in the center of the square. Quite a nice and pretty item. And this was produced by 3M at the time. Came in a nice little box with instructions. So this, again, was for people of serious interest to have on their desk or to use to help with stock market buyings or getting answers in general. So these, again, are out there, and he's produced these things. He also has produced good luck charms. There's 2 of them that I know of. Again, we have one of these featured on our YouTube channel, and hopefully the other one I will feature when I can find it, that are little pendant medallions, I guess you would call them. Little amulets of sort. And it's got his name on it, or the other one has a couple of images. These images they're kind of sigil-like, and they're supposed to empower, by you holding them, your thought form. So they're basically thought form empowering devices. And he sold these. Now, I don't know how many were sold. They pop up now and then. They're very difficult to find in general. There's not many of these on the market. I've watched for them for years and were able to get them. But you're talking about, I haven't seen any of these pendants out in many, many years. So they're very, very rare to get if you're interested in them. But, they are connected to this guy who has a high level of empowerment or trickster attitude. So the whole idea is that, working through some of his mental energies, which he claims he builds every day by reading 3 books and practicing, I don't know. I don't know if that's all a bunch of come-ons and he sits at home doing nothing, watching cartoons. I have no idea. He doesn't really say that. He does say that he probably does. He seems like a person who is gathering a lot of information. But the problem is it doesn't really come out in his life. Gathering information on what? He's not made any other statements. He's not working for any other organizations. He's not helping people with mental problems. He's not doing medical stuff. he has written several books, which we'll go over here in a minute. Excuse me. He doesn't have ESP centers, so I don't know what he's reading that he's getting so much information from. Certainly, it isn't anything that seems to be of great value. So, we do have to keep. So I don't know what he's training himself in, but he appears to me, and of course that's the image he wants to portray, that he's this great mental person, and he's studying psychology and movements and how all of this all works together. As he said, he doesn't believe in psychic power. There's nothing real there. Hypnotism is not true. Everybody who does psychic stunts is a fraud. Well, it shows to me he ain't reading much, and that's pretty much typical of people. Now, if you're a person who's an expert in something, or you're into something, let's say Christian, well, you're going to read a whole bunch of Christian books. Well, do you know anything about Hinduism, Judaism, Islam? No, I just read Christian. So you're a expert in Christianity and have nothing to compare it to. And of course, he's probably doing the same thing. Most people do that, and since they're not well-rounded and they're not reading a large variety of information and doing a large variety of research like IGUS does and I've done, I'm very eclectic. I know something about everything. That's important. You can't just pigeonhole yourself and then say you know something. You don't. So I'm not sure what he's doing. He certainly hasn't come out with any of that. And as I said, he slapped his name most likely, well, of course he was paid for it. But did he design any of these games? It doesn't appear to be. It appears that the actual game manufacturers, every one of them that I have looked at, and I've checked out just about every one made in the last 100 years, they're all going to parapsychologists and psychologists and putting these together with their help. As I said, he's got several books. One of them is The Amazing World of Kreskin, who he talks about his basic work. And there are several other ones. As I said, I don't remember these. There's Conversations with Kreskin, which is a hardcover that's relatively new. It's got to be at least 6 books out there. Kreskin Confidential, The World's Greatest Mentalist Speaks Out. I believe that's a little pamphlet. So he has all these things, and they're all ways of making money. There are quite a few out there. The Adventures of the Amazing Kreskin. I'm not sure what's in there, but there's a lot of these. And of course, you can easily get his signature and everything else if you want to kind of psychically tap into what he's doing. He's got a book on pendulums. And as I said, this is all the stuff that he was big into. And as ways of making money. The Secrets of the Amazing Kreskin. The world of how to expand your own personal powers. And as he said, he goes back and forth into tricks and basic things to build yourself psychically, which he doesn't call psychic. He calls it mentalism and other things. So he's not really, as he said, he's not really getting into all of that stuff. So, but there are many, many books. As he said, I'm going to be even how to become a fake Kreskin. I don't know how fake it is, but he teaches you straight mentalism there, or magic tricks. So there's a whole bunch of these. I will, as I said, review these slowly myself as I start reading them again. And there may be some good information there that you can use in general psychic empowerment. So the fact that he's kind of weaved in that, you won't find anybody else doing that. Most other ones have not got into training psychic power that I'm aware of. Most of your typical tricksters out there, Chris Angel, Penn and Teller, all these people don't believe in psychic powers. They're against it. The magical community will ostracize them if they come out and state there's something real. Banachek, the Las Vegas goofball, is taken over from the unamazing Randy on running his quasi whatever it is there. You can't really say that that's a research institute when it's all stacked with people that believe in nothing but their own agenda, and who basically, as far as my opinion is, I allege that it's a big fake prize they were going to give away for $1 million. They're never going to give that away, and they never did. You can't be the person to give the prize away that is holding the check. It has to be done by a third party. You're going to pay that person because a third party, a neutral party, has verified the facts. But he wanted to verify the facts that you were psychic and wouldn't trust anybody else. Well, the problem with that is very unscientific and corrupt, which of course is what all the dumb bunkers and idiot skeptics are. Corrupt. It's as simple as that. It's just a lie. They have no intentions of seeking truth. They're there to disprove something that I allege they're being paid to disprove. They're not. All these people have an amazing income from all sorts of donations from very sketchy people. So there's been many. The Kreskin Mind Power book, Kreskin's fun way to mind expansion. What are the other ones? Kreskin's super secret booklet, Pendulum and Lifetime Enrichment Response. I believe that was one there was a problem with. The Amazing Kreskin Future with the Stars. Mental Power is Real. Now, again, he's using mental power. He doesn't consider it psychic power. He doesn't consider ESP that. Kreskin Confidential. And Conversations with Kreskin, I think I mentioned that. So all of these things. So he's got like 10 or 15 books. And, it's always good to look at things that are kind of based in mentalism instead of just, people like Penn and Teller. They don't really do mentalist stuff. They're doing all sorts of more elaborate stuff, as well as all sorts of little things. So the whole idea is that, and as I've mentioned, the entertainers, or the big entertainers that have made some of the greatest amounts of money in the world, surprisingly are not movie stars and other things. They are illusionists. So it's quite interesting. And we'll go into a lot of this. And, Penn and Teller is worth $150 million each per the internet. So the whole idea, and I'm not surprised. So many of these other ones are made that as well. Chris Angel has a show going in Vegas and has a contract for I don't know how many years, and he's making hundreds of millions of dollars. And a lot of these magicians do and have. So it's something that we need to understand and understand at a very high level. So this is big money, this is illusion, this is Hollywood, this is entertainment, and that's it. So when they start flopping, David Blaine has made a fortune telling people he's kind of this super person. And you're a super person because you can do a card trick. Well, that's ridiculous. So the whole idea is that, but people are very gullible and easily misled. So there are these things, these scandals connected to Kreskin to a certain extent. His predictions are kind of a joke, but he's got that typical nihilistic viewpoint to a degree about anything that seems to be based in higher state functioning. You're a meat puppet. You're a meat puppet under Jesus, and that's about it. That's where he's coming from. So it is something to understand there. He is not a psychically powerful person or even works in that way. Now, what he's doing with observation and other things by filling his senses up and looking for minor changes to gain information from someone is not on a psychic level, but it tends to stimulate psychic powers by being in a high state of observation. I've talked about this before, but you got to fill up your senses. So if you're really watching a person carefully, you are extremely centered on that energy, and things will come to you that you think is just a twitching, but you're also getting a psychic message with that. But he doesn't work from that, doesn't believe in it, and of course that means you're ignorant, you're not well read, you haven't looked at the scientific facts from 150 years done by top people like Russell Targ with high PhDs in laser science, who have worked in all traditional sciences, who by the way started out as a doing magic tricks himself, that's for fun. But has been a person who has helped develop basic laser technology. All this we can do. But he's an idiot, Russell Targ. He knows nothing. He's just a total bozo, right? No, this Christian college graduate, Kreskin, is a genius. And he knows there's no psychic power because, after all, the priests told him that. Or maybe they didn't. So considering how mystical Catholicism is, with all the saints that are doing miracle stuff all the time. But I guess they figure this is all just from one source. And boy, that makes, we know God's too busy helping baseball and football players win games to do any really good work. So, all this kind of nonsense that goes on. So he's going to continue his act. There's all of that he puts out. And as he said, oddly enough, and the reason why I tend to, I don't know if I support, but indirectly recommend his products and his books, is that these are great psychic tools. And I don't think that psychic training tools. I don't think he had much to do with it. I think they came from other people. I don't think he figured it out. I don't think he invented the pendulum boards. These are all things other people did and slapped his name on it. But regardless of it, they're great tools. The basic Milton Bradley quote game is a fantastic tool to train yourself in basic psychic empowerment. ESP, use of pendulums, the same thing with the advanced kit, the same thing with the Celtic kit. All of these are great tools. I use the little, because I like it, I find it attractive, the actual yes and no lucite pendulum thing. And I use that pendulum all the time. For some bizarre reason, the lucite round ball pendulum works well for me. I'm not even sure why. I use several, but I like that. I like the, maybe it's just the weight is perfect for me. These are all good tools. Now they're getting more and more expensive. It's hard to find a lot of these things, and they're climbing in price. Of course, they've been around for 40, 50 years. So the whole idea is now this stuff is old, but most of it seems to be in excellent condition and very usable. And these are not time-dated things. The bottom line is that these items you can use 150 years from now. Basic psychic training is all the same. Only I have developed some new tools or even how to use a lot of these fun stuff at higher levels. So all of this is part of and parcel of what's actually going on at this time. So, and we need to fully understand that. So these are good tools, and that's why I recommend it. And and just because that's the time he was popular, that's why he got into, quote, ESP. But of course, he's dropped all that. He doesn't talk about it at all. So it shows that he's really not interested in it. He's not trying to develop people psychically. He doesn't like the term psychic and doesn't believe it. He's living in the club where he'll be ostracized if he gives any ability to mental powers. So he calls him a mentalist, which is another word for fake psychic. So the whole idea is that this is sad, that someone in his community in particular, and him at his advanced age, doesn't come out and get into these issues that he likes to cross into in his books and his products. He's also didn't have a problem making up what are considered good luck charms and amplifying tools. And so he has these pendants, as I've mentioned. There's two that I know of that he sold as well. And again, I doubt if he had anything to do with them. He was approached by others. You've got to remember, if you have products with your name on it, other people are going to have products and say, look, we can make this and use your name. I'm assuming he would be up for an offer even today if you want to contact him and say, I want to make more pendants, and I'm going to pay you a fee here to use it, and maybe even a royalty. That, of course, he would be more than happy to do that. So, as long as it's kept in the same, quote, ESP realm as other things. So, that's the interesting thing about him. No other person has done that. You're going to find Penn and Teller selling things like that. You're not going to find psychic enabling games or tools from anybody else. There's nobody else out there except for the Mind Over Matter, a game that I am familiar with, which is another fantastic tool. But I don't even know the guy who stated on them and can't find any information. But which I don't recall at the moment. As I said, watch that video. That person I've never heard of, and I can't find anything on the net about him. Of course, that doesn't mean anything. He must have been popular back then. The only person who's, and of course he's 86 and has survived, that gets into all these things is Kreskin. So, I recommend these products. I recommend his books in general that talk about mental empowerments and how to use your mental abilities, even though he stopped short pretty much all the time of that. It's even fun to look at his old TV show from the 70s to see all those people that we've heard about and the books that were written back then who are now kind of legends on his little show. And you can buy those that set of DVDs. It's not a lot of his shows, but it's like 10 or 15. And it comes with a little tiny pendulum and I think a kind of bored. All of that comes together there with that. And it's fun to look at it. But again, you can get his attitude watching him there. You can get his attitude, he's trying to make himself special, and he's putting down most psychic people. And everybody who does anything psychic, he's going to come out and say it's a fraud. And he makes himself look like an idiot, as he talked about some Russian woman who was popular in the 60s, who was shown on TV moving objects underneath. Now, when she moved forward because of her dress and because she was a woman and had a bust, her dress would move forward at the same time she moved forward. His interpretation is that was a trick. There was some sort of string going in there through the lucite case that the items are in, moving the items there. That was his conclusion. Well, that shows me a very stupid person. And these are the type of things I run into almost everybody in life, is that no one is well-rounded. He's put his name on a lot of stuff because it was popular, so he could make money, even to the point of putting it on good luck charms or amulets to sell things to make money and nothing else. He believes in nothing. He believes only in astute observation and really doesn't believe that the mind can do anything much past that, regardless of what some of his books say. But as I said, I'll have to get into each individual book and what goes on there. But he is generally you could say, a radical Catholic who is perpetrating what is entertainment only. And when it comes down to it, that's what he says he is. So we need to take that in mind. But like everything else in the world, I take and use information from any source I can get it. I prove if it is truth or has value in general and to me personally. And if something good is out there that has been marketed, because, the parapsychologists don't have any of these kind of games. There's no, this came out from J.B. Rhine Institute game or tool. None of that's out there. Of course, there were cards connected to him apparently for some time in the 30s, but I don't think they produced anything. There's no other things like that. Now, there are some psychics who put out games and other things with little response, but in general, you're not getting any. Uri Geller has put out some stuff, but he really has, he's come out with a few kits for dowsing and other things, so I guess that's not entirely true. But he's done some of it, but that's about it. And of course, all of his stuff is good as well. Some of it is very jokey and kid-based. Other things he has are practical information. But, he doesn't run an institute, Geller, and he doesn't send out letters. He's a very simple person with very simple abilities, and I'm not sure he understands it. And ironically, he's a very religious person himself, with psychological problems of being apparently bulimic. So the whole idea is that, everybody is a non-complete puzzle, but they certainly are a puzzle, meaning they're just another piece in the bigger puzzle to assemble to reach extreme abilities. Now, we have all the stuff. We have the systems. It works. You apply yourself. We've come out now with all the great tools. We have a few fill-ins that we're going to do right now in terms of getting proper technologies out there. And we have then a totally incomplete system. But we already have a very psychic system that works. We know what works and we know what's required. And what's required is centering and building occult gym practices. If you don't pump psychic iron, you're going to be a psychic weakling, plain and simple. You do what it takes to build your abilities, and you will be successful. I've never known anyone to fail. You do the techniques, and you will reach a certain level of ability. And of course, like everything in life, some people are masters, some people are just good at it, some people are excellent at it, some people are just kind of crummy at it. But you will be at it, and you will have a certain ability if you follow the right things. It's assured because it's like everything else. Everybody can have muscles. Go to the gym and pump iron. There's nobody that will not build muscles if you go to a gym. Will you look like someone else? Will you have that perfect body? Well, a lot of that is genetic, meaning, some people build muscles better. But the point is, I've never known a person who's ever worked out consistently that hasn't developed a good body. But whether you're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or others, well, a lot of that is the fact of genetics and a lot of drugs. has been well noted. So the whole idea is that understand that. I mean, again, take good things, look through these, and but we do have to understand who these professional illusionists are, and we'll be covering others very soon. Until next time.